Lamed test 39a on the top. The following vegetables a person can fulfill his obligation on Pesach. This is now referring to Mara. Starts with chazeres. The chazeres. Chazeres is lettuce. That the Gemara is going to translate for us. B'tamcha. Tamcha, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the Gemara is going to say. Rashi gives us a French word, marubia. I think they translate tamcha as horseradish in the Mishnayos. Charchavina, some other thing. But Ulshin is going to be translated as endives. Ubamara. Endives is a small lettuce leaf, a little. And with Mara, you have to see what Mara is. Maybe Mara is the frame. Okay, whatever the case is, Yetzim ben bein lachen ben yevesim, your yaitza, whether it's fresh or dry. Avalei kavushin, but they can't be pickled. Rashi says in vinegar. Today they vinegar, they pickle with salt. That's like, if you use vinegar, that's like cheating. So anyway, that's what Rashi says, pickled with vinegar. V'loi shalukin, it can't be overboiled. V'loi mivashalan, it can't be regular boiled. Mitzdarfen l'kazayas, and you can join different of these different herbs to join one kazayas. It doesn't need to be a kazayas of one type. Okay, one of the things that they're concerned of when they wash the vegetables, they use salt water, so they soak it. And if you soak it for a certain amount of time, it becomes kavush. So there's a problem. You could passel the lettuce by cleaning it for bugs. You know, when they check it for bugs, they clean it first. You have to be careful not to soak it for too long. Well, 24 hours would be if it's not something sharp. But if you're using salt or some sort of brine, then it takes less time. Okay, of course you can't use hot water. That would be an issue. You can also use the stalks. You can use demai. We learned this before when it came to the matzah. Demai is if it's purchased from an amaret, we're not sure if the maestros were taken. If it was meiserishin, that means it was given to the Levi, and the Levi removed the truma from it. Or if it was the second type, which is brought to Yerushalayim, or if it was sanctified, but it was redeemed. So all of these you could use for the mar. Okay, now we do the translations. Chazeres is chasa. Lettuce is lettuce. Ulshin, the ulshin that we mentioned is hindivi, endives. Rashi gives us an old French. Tamcha, what's tamcha? Amarabba Barbrachana tamchasa shema. It's called tamchasa. Okay. I don't have a translation here, so I'm not sure. Tell me again. Yeah, hindivi. Hindivi is an Aramaic translation for the Hebrew ulshin. Ulshin was the Hebrew word. The Gemara tells us. Ulshin is endives. And in Aramaic, it's hindiv. So it's similar. Yeah, Charchavina. Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish, probably. Atzvesad dikla. It's something that grows around a palm tree. Some sort of plant that grows around the palm tree. Sometimes, yeah. Amin Gevix. Uba marar. What is marar? Mirita. Yeah, so it's Rashi gives us a French word. Imir foil who puprits. I'm not sure what it is. Okay. Tani bar kapara taught. The following vegetables a person can use for the marar on Pesach. Ulshin, we translated endives. Tamcha, we translated as tamchasa, whatever that is. Becharchelin, that's a new one. Ubecharchavinin, that we had. That's something that grows around the palm tree. Chazarin, probably chazaris. Rabbi, it's supposed to be Rabbi over here. Rabbi Yehuda Imer af olshe sadeh v'olshe gina v'chazaris. Rabbi Yehuda adds olshe sadeh, which probably means a wild endive. Olshe gina is garden endives, and chazaris, which is the lettuce. Now the Gemara has an issue with what Rabbi Yehuda is adding, because we already said chazaris and we already said olshin. So the Gemara asks, olshe gina v'chazaris atana le'reisha. You already said that. What's Rabbi Yehuda adding? Also this. We said it already. The Gemara says, af olshe sadik olshe gina v'chazaris. What he means to say is that wild endives has the same din as garden endives and lettuce. The mayor, not to soak or something like that, just in the species, if it's acceptable. Reb Meir says, Af asvas v'tura umar yarur. Also, these types of vegetables, asvas tura and mar yarur. That's Reb Meir's adding to this. Amalei Reb Yaisi says to Reb Meir, asvas v'tura echadum. That's the same thing. I guess it means it's the same family. So, umar, when he said mar yarur, mar zehu yarur. Mar is the same as yarur. We didn't translate it. All Rashi tells us about this is that it's a type of vegetable. That's all we know. I'm sorry? Yeah. It's also hard to know, even if we have some description, it's hard to know if that's the same species as we had back then. Also things, they mix, and we don't have the same variety. Wow. Right. Tana de Bay Rab Shmuel was taught in the yeshiva of Shmuel. The following are vegetables that a person can fulfill his obligation on Pesach: bechazeres, lettuce, ulshin, endives, betamcha is what we said, tamcha, becharvinin, but we had it becharvinin. That was what grew around the palm tree. Bechaginin, that's a new one for us. Bahar Dufnin. Tamcha we didn't translate. We just translated as Tamchasa. You're right. And then Hardufnin. The Gemara later on, I think, is going to tell us about Hirduf or Hardufnin. Rabbi Yehuda says, Af Chazeres Yulin v'Chazeres Galin. Also Chazeres Yulin, this type of lettuce, and Chazeres Galin, that type of lettuce. Okay. Kiyotze Behen, similar to this, Rabbi Lo Yomer Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, probably. Rabbi Lo says in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, Af Arkavalin. Also Arkavalin. This says it grows around the tree. Okay. Also Arkavalin. The Chazarti al Kol Talmidav, but he says I went around to all of Rabbi Eliezer's Talmidim. I looked for anyone that had the same information that I had. I wasn't able to find. When I came to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, he agreed that these are also acceptable. Rabbi Yehuda says anything that has sap inside. That means that when you cut it, the white sap, like a milk, comes out of it. In French, lighton. Interesting. I don't know if it's like a latex. So it comes out. Rabbi Yechon ben Breka, kol shapanav machsifin, anything that's not dark green. That's not dark green. It needs to be light. Its surface is lighter. Rashi says it's not as dark as a leek. Others say kol yerek mar, anything that's a bitter vegetable. This is a sign of telling if this is considered Bitter is if it has the sap and it's not so dark. Rabbi Yechanan says, Midivri kol nilmad. From if you put it all together, what we can understand from this is that yerek mar, a bitter vegetable, yeshlei saraf upon a machzifim, because we checked all of those out, and we checked that if you cut them, actually, this what's it called? It's not a sap. The sap isn't a tree, but this liquid comes out. Yeah. What's the plant here with the butterflies? Milkweed. I think that's poisonous stuff. But yeah, they eat this. They eat the leaf and they get caught in the sap that comes out. So, and the surface is lighter. Amar Rav Huna halacha ka'acherim. Rav Huna says halacha is like acherim. Acherim, usually acherim is Reb Meir. Is that going to be an issue for us? Because Reb Meir had a different opinion before. I'm not sure. Acherim told us over here that if it has sap and its surface is lighter than a leek, it's not such a dark green. It's going to be kosher for Mara. Ravina ashkechila ravacha breidu rava david mahader amirita. Ravina, he finds Ravacha, Rava's son, that's looking for Merirta. That was the type of Mara that he wanted to use. Amalei mai daita. What's your opinion? What are you thinking? The Merir and Tvei, that this is more bitter? Well, Chazaris Tanan, if you look at the Mishnah, and it says that these are the vegetables that are used for Pesach, you can fulfill the obligation. The first one and the first item on the list is Chazaris, is lettuce. And then if you go to the brisa that was taught in the yeshiva of Shmuel, it says these are the vegetables that you can use on Pesach, and the first item is chazaras. And even we have a statement from Rabbi Shia, mitzvah b'chazaras. The mitzvah is to use the lettuce. Rava, and Rava says, he's quoting to his father, my chazaras. What does chazaras mean? Chasa. And what is it means lettuce. Now, why specifically do we use lettuce, chasa? My chasa, what is the meaning of this chasa? The chas rachmane lavan, that Hashem had compassion on us. It's a play on the word. Chasa. Chasa means that Hashem had compassion. And Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani says the name of Rabbi Yonasan. Lama nimshlu Mitzrayim or Mitzrayim kamaran. Why are the Mitzrayim compared to Marar? This we never thought of. Usually we thought of Marar as something that we were bitter. So no, the Mitzrayim are compared to Marar. Why? To tell you, just like Marar originally it starts off fresh, soft, and then it gets harder. Also, the Egyptians, they started off soft and then they got harder. How they start off soft? They told us, you start working and we'll pay you. And then they cut out the payment and we turned into slaves. So that's the marar. This would be like a real trivia. No one would think of this. Marar, why do we eat marar? No, because our lives are bitter. But it's a comparison to us, or it's a comparison to the Mitzrayim. In the Haggadah, we don't say it like this. Interesting. Amalei, Ravacha Breda Rava says, Haji B. Okay, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to go for the Merirta. I'm going to go for the lettuce. Yeah. I guess we're seeing over here that to be more frum by the Seder doesn't mean that you need a sharper crane or something. No, you take the lettuces also. Maybe that's what he was thinking. I'm going to be extra frum. I'm going to get a crane that says on it hot. No. Amrle Rav Rechumi la Abaya. Rav Rechumi says to Abaya, Mimai dahar marar min yeraku. How do you know that marar is a vegetable? Ema marir to the kufya. Maybe it's the gall of a mackerel fish. That's what Rabbi Steinsaltz translated. He thinks it's It's a type of fish. So it's very, very bitter. And maybe this is marer. So the Gemara answers, or Abaya responds to Rav Rechumi, Dumya de matzah, it needs to be similar to matzah. Ma matzah gedulei karka, mara gedulei karka, it needs to grow from the ground just like matzah. Because the pasuk says matzah umara, al matzah umrayim. We had it before once, where we could put this comparison together. What did we say? Rabbi Kiva Imer matzah umara. Just like mara is only from the, it's not bikurim, only the zayin minim, if you remember that a few days ago. Okay, so the ema here, maybe it's a type of wood that Moshe Rabbeinu used to sweeten the water of Mara, the bitter waters. And the Gemara tells us, or the Mechilta tells us, that it was a nes b'toich nes, it was a double miracle. Because hirdif itself is bitter. And when you threw it into the water was bitter. Oleander wood. Oh, really? Uh-huh. Tell me again. Oh, we got that's. Wait, I'll go through that. We started off saying that matzah is gedulei karka, needs to grow from the ground, so therefore you can't use a fish. Now we're learning. Okay, so let's use this wood, which is also bitter. How do you know that it's supposed to be a vegetable? So the Gemara answers, Dumya de matzah needs to be similar to matzah. Ma matzah means royim, just like matzah is a type of seed. Afmar means royim, it needs to be a type of seed or a grain. Well, it's not not a tree, it needs to be a vegetable. And here was a tree. Ve'ema harzifu. Maybe you're supposed to use this poison for, it's an animal, it poisons animals. Maybe you're supposed to use that. It says, Dumya de matzah. No, we're looking for something similar to matzah. Ma matzah shenikachas because of meiser. It needs to be able to be purchased with the meiser money and the meiser sheni, which has to be something edible. Afmar shenikach because of meiser, you can't use that poison. That's not going to be mara. Amarle Rabba Barav Chanan La Abaya. Abaya is answering some questions here. Rabba Barav Chanan asked Abaya, Ema Mara Chad. Maybe there's only one type of Mara. You're giving all these options. You can use all of these for Mara. It is a little strange. We don't have these options when it comes to Lulav and Esrog. You say, well, you can either use this or that or this. We have one type, and that's it. That's what you have to get. And here by Mara, it's like a whole list of things that you could use. Oh, by matzah, let's see. Matzah, you can use all the grains, as we'll see in a moment. So Abaye answers Merayrim Ksiv. Al matzahs Merayrim. No, it's plural. So that's why you can have all these options. The Imer Merim tray, but maybe you never take the full amount that you're offered. You always take it says plural, it says only two. Maybe there's only two options. And Gemara says, Dumya de matzah. It's a comparison to matzah. Ma matzah min harbe, afmar min harbe. Just like matzah, you can use all the different types of grains, spelt and oats and whatever. I guess you have 5. I'm sorry. And the Shibah Shul. So you can use in the ra, you can use all of those grains in the wheat and the barley. So too, when it comes to Mari, you have all of these options. Zeres, Tamcha, Charkavina, Ulshim, and Mar. It's actually 5, which is interesting. At least the Mishnah is 5. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Huna, Rabba bar Rav Huna. Says the name of Rav. Rav Huna was a student of Rav. This is Rav Huna's son. Yirakish Amar Chachamim, Shad Mietze Yebehem Yedei Chavasa B'Pesach, Kulan Nizram Baruga Achas. Gives a statement that all of the things that are kosher for marar could all be planted in one row, in one patch, which means that it's not kalayim. This means to say that it's not kalayim. The problem is, Masav Rava asked a question on this. Chazeres v'chazeres galim. 2 types of lettuce. Chazeres lettuce, and chazeres galim is another type of lettuce. Ulshin v'ulshe sada, endives and wild endives. Krishin ukrishi sada, leeks and wild leeks. Kuspar v'kuspar sada, coriander and wild coriander. Chardal v'chardal mitzri, mustard and Egyptian mustard. V'dalas hamitzri v'harmutzia, and this Egyptian gourd and harmutzia is another type of gourd. Karkuzoi. Einim kalayim zebazeh. These are not considered kalayim. In other words, these are under the same family. Chazeres v'chazeres galamin, chazeres volshin loy. The way that the Gemara is reading this brisa is that it's pairs. It's read in pairs. Now, if I take chazeres wasn't kalayim with chazeres galim, the two types of lettuce. And endives weren't kalayim with wild endives. But lettuce with endives looks like it's kalayim. Maybe you should read the Mishnah different in the Brisa. What you should do is you should read the whole thing as the whole list is not kalayim. Maybe read it like that. It says, but Rav didn't learn like that. Rav taught this Mishnah, and he said that it's supposed to be read in pairs. And Rav is the one that's saying that all of the vegetables of the marar are not kalayim. So the actual expression of Rav was that they can all be sown, all be planted in one patch. And here we see that they are kalayim. Lettuce and endives are kalayim. The Gemara answers, "Mine is Ram." What does it mean they can be planted? Mine is Ram damarav. What is the planting that Rav meant? Is Ram kil chasan. They have to be planted properly with the right separations apart from each other. It's exactly the opposite. Not that they could be planted together and they're not kalayim. The opposite, they could be planted in a way that it's not kalayim if you have the right separations. Kil chasan tanina. What do you mean? That's a Mishnah that says, Aruga shehi shishal shisha tvachim. If I have a patch, a vegetable patch, 6 by 6 tvachim, how many types of vegetables can I put in there? You do this when you want to plant like spices or something. You don't need a huge thing of spices. You try to fit them in so you can get all the variety. It says zayrin b'seicha chamisha zarainim. You can put into it 5 types of seeds. Arba ruches. Each edge can get another species, and then v'achas b'emtzi, you can put one in the middle. So that's what Rav is telling us, that you can plant it in this way. The Gemara says, 1 second, I have a Mishnah that says that. I don't need Rav to tell me that. The Gemara says, no, I do need Rav to tell me that. Because I could have thought that Mishnah was only talking about seeds, which means like grains, aval b'yarakis, but not by vegetables. So the Gemara views vegetables in different categories. And in Masechta Brachos we had this, that there's vegetables that you eat the fruit, like a tomato or an eggplant or something. There's vegetables that you eat the leaf. Yerakis are usually, you eat the leaf. The yerek, it's the green. And then there was zarainin, which you eat the seeds, which is grains or beans. Yeah, what are roots? Carrots and stuff, I don't know. Right. Grain. Under the category of grains, because they have a seed that we're going to see over here something similar to that. Let's see. So what we just did now is we said I could have thought that maybe what is this Mishnah referring to, that I can put 5 types into one vegetable patch? That's talking about the grains. Aval Yerakis Lai, but I'm not allowed to do it with vegetables. So Kamash Malan, so that's what Rav is saying, is that all of these vegetables I can also put into one vegetable patch as long as I separate them, 4 on the sides and 1 in the center. Gemara says that's a little surprising, because Lamimra di Yerakis Alivim Mizraim. The way you're putting it is that I was 100% clear about the grains or those seeds, that those could be 5 in a vegetable patch. And I thought that maybe when it comes to the actual leafy vegetables, that I would need to have only 1 in a patch. That's making it look like the vegetables are stricter than the grains. But the problem is, V'atanan, We have a Mishnah, Kol min Yisroim in Zayrin Barugachas, Kol min Yiraka Zayrin Barugachas. Exactly the opposite. Grains cannot be put into one patch, and it's only specifically the vegetables that could be put in one patch. That Mishnah before was specifically talking about vegetables, not grains. The Gemara says, "Hani mal detema, hani marar min zrayim ninu." No, Rav still has a chiddush. I know that 5 types in a patch is only referring to leafy vegetables, not referring to the seeds, not referring to the grains. Question is, what about these types of marar? Are these considered grains, or are these considered leafy vegetables? The Rav tells me that they're considered leafy vegetables and they could be planted in the patch. Kamash Malon tells me that they're leafy vegetables. Where do you get this from to say that these types of marar are considered? You could have even thought that they were considered the grains or the seeds, legumes possibly. But Tanan Yerakis, Tani Bar Kapari Yerakis, Tani the Bishmul Yerakis. No one ever thought that these should be considered seeds, because if you look at the Mishnah, it says Elu Yerakis. There are seeds in the grain.
No, I'm saying that is it grain because it goes in the ground?
Oh, I don't know what it means if it's in the ground. Under the category of seeds is legumes and grains, beans and grains. Those are where you eat the seed, you eat the part that's planted. The Gemara is not asking. It's interesting. The Gemara could have just asked us, right?
The grain is the seeds. And lettuce is the Europe. I mean, just putting the two together.
It's funny that the Gemara doesn't bring us a raya from the Metzias. It says, how could you call this seeds? But you see, it's a vegetable. The Gemara says, no. How could you call the seeds? But the Mishnah says a vegetable. It's a raya from Mishnah. And Bar Kapara says vegetable. And Shmuel says vegetable. And what are you thinking that these guys in the category of seeds? So the Gemara says, Chazer Setzrichali. When it comes to the lettuce, it's not 100% clear. They could have thought that maybe because the stalk of the lettuce gets harder, and so I have to give it more space, and I can't plant it 5 types into one vegetable patch. So Kamash Malan, that you're able to put the chazeres, the lettuce, into this as well. Now, lettuce can grow differently. The cabbages basically grow just like one cabbage just grows up from the ground, but the other lettuces, they grow a stalk and the leaves come out. And the center stalk, I guess, could get thicker as it grows. There's all different lettuces. Lavam Rabbi Yosi Bar Chanina, and a proof to this. Did Rabbi Yosi Bar Chanina not say Kelach Shel Kruv Shehuksha Marchibin Like Beis Reiva? The stalk of a cabbage. Yeah, I just said cabbages just go on up. It gets thicker as it grows, and so therefore you need to give it more space. A Beis Reiva. I'm not sure exactly how big it is, but it's a quarter of a sa of a besa. A besa was 50 by 50 amas. What would a quarter of that be? I guess. Okay. It's a 12.5 by 50. I guess that would be a quarter. Alma kiven the seifa lahakshis yavin le'revachat. You see from Rabbi Yosi that because it's going to get larger, you have to give it more space. So hachinami nesav le'revachat here also by the chazeres, you should give it more space. Kamash Malan, the Rav is telling me Kilchasa that I don't need to do that, and I can just plant it 5 in one patch as long as I do it 4 on the side and 1 in the center. So there is a chiddush here, according to Rav, that I could have compared it to a cabbage. I don't compare it to the cabbage. Okay. What is that?
I said this one
could have. Oh, this one you could have done.
This is another grain. We were trying to prove that
That's what we thought.
And then we went off on a little tangent.
That they're all different.
And spices or whatever. So did we conclude as to whether or not these can be planted in the same field and therefore they're on the same
We're saying that, no, saying they can't be planted together. What did Rav mean say that they could be planted together? If you do the proper spacing, you could plant them together.
So therefore,
Right.
they're not from the same family.
They're not the same family.
Not necessarily all be used.
No, they can all be used for marar, but the statement that Rav made is how they're planted is just telling us that if you do want to plant all the types of marar together, you have to space them properly. No. Yeah, we thought Rav was saying that they're the same family, you can plant them together. Then the Gemara comes along and says, actually different families, and what Rav meant was that you have to space them according to the halakha. You follow the Kalayim guidelines.
But when he said before that they're also the same family and
that was
the fruit is that you can plant them with two lines, it wasn't
right.
Just the side thing.
That was a surprise. That was rejected. That was a pshat that was rejected. We thought that he meant that there's no kalayim there. We reject that. We say there is kalayim. It has to be planted properly. Right. That could be what led into this. But that doesn't have to do with the fact that you can put it in a sandwich doesn't mean it has nothing to do with how you can plant it. To separate your the lettuce. Okay. Yitzim be'em bein lachen bein yiveshin chulam. You can use the marar whether it's in it's fresh or dry. Amar Rav Chisda. Now let me take a look at that chulu. What did the chulu say? But it can't be pickled. It can't be overboiled. It can't be cooked, and they all drain to the kazayas. Fresh, yeah, wet. Okay. Amar Rav Chisda leishanu ala bekela. Where did we learn that you can use the dry marar? That's only the stalk. Aval ba'alen, but when it comes to the leaves, lachen in yiveshim light, it needs to be fresh. Can't use dry leaves. 1 second. There's a little bit of an issue here. If you look at the Mishnah started off saying that these are the types that you can use, and you can use fresh and you can use dry. You read the Mishnah further, it says you can also use the stalk. Now, what was the beginning of the Mishnah referring to? Obviously, the leaves. So when it said wet, fresh, or dry, it was referring to the leaves, because only later on it said you can use the stalk. So it must be that the beginning of the Mishnah is referring to the leaves. How could Rav Chisda tell me that the leaves can't be dry if that's what the Mishnah was talking about? The Gemara says, the Mishnah is explaining. When did it say you can use the wet or the dry? Either fresh or dry, that's referring to the stalk. Okay, Meisvei. Gemara has a question on that. Yoitzin, you can fulfill the obligation with these types. And with the stalks. Bein lachen, bein yiveshin. Whether they're fresh, whether they're dry. Div Rab Meir. The Chachamim say lachen, if they're fresh, yitzimem, you can use them. Yiveshin, if they're dried, ein yitzimem, you can't use them. The shavan sheyitzimem kamushim. Everyone holds that you can use them if they're withered. Avalei kavushim, but not pickled. Avalei shlukim, not boiled. Avalei mevushalim, and not cooked. Kloli shel davar. The rule is kol sheyesh beitam mara yitzimem v'chol shein beitam mara ein yitzimem. It needs to have the bitter taste. The question is, we have to go back to what we said before. We started off this brisa with, you can use them and kelach shalehem. I'm sorry, you could use them and their stalk, whether wet, whether fresh or dry. We said before, according to Rav Chisda, that only the stalk could be dried, not the leaves. Here we're saying that both could be. So tirgama kelach. The Gemara answers that when it says you can use them or their stalk, wet or dry, you have to put a comma. You can use them, comma, or their stalk, wet or dry. But them needs to be fresh. That's what the Gemara is doing here. Withered. I'm sorry. Kamushim is withered. Kavushim means pickled. Tanu Rabbanon was taught in a brayse in Yitzimem Kamushim. You can't use them withered. We said before you can. Mishum Rabbi Lazar Bar Tzadok Amar Yitzimem Kamushim. Rabbi Lazar Bar Tzadok says that you can use them if they're withered. Boy Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama has interesting questions. Takes us back into the sugis before. Ma'al sheyetzi adam midei chavase b'mara shel ma'aser sheni b'Yerushalayim. We had a big machlekes regarding using matzah that was from grain of ma'aser sheni. So machlekes Rabbi Yossi Aglili, he said that the matzah needs to be, you have to be able to eat it ba'aninas, and ma'aser sheni cannot be eaten ba'aninas. Then we had another opinion that said that needs to be eaten. Well, we had a question. Rabbi Kiva said you can use it. We had a question that 1 second you can't take it out of Yerushalayim once it's brought there. We said no, you can once it becomes tamei. According to Rabbi Lazar, you could redeem it. But it was a big discussion regarding matzah from Ma'aser Sheni. Now the Rami Bar Chama is asking a question: what about marar from Ma'aser Sheni? The Gemara says, "Aliba de Rabbi Kiva leiti ba'ila." According to Rabbi Kiva, we have no question. Because hashta b'matzah daraisa nafik, mar derabanan mibai. If you're yaitzer, the word nafik means to be yaitzer, means to go out. Like yaitzer means to go out, which means to fulfill. If with matzah, which is daraisa, you can fulfill with ma'aser sheni. So marar, it's only rabbinic. For sure, you can use ma'aser sheni. There's two pshatim here. What it means marar is rabbinic. Simple pshat probably is.
What do you get from marar?
No. Mibai, does it need to tell me? Is it necessary? Question. Right. Mibai means necessary, but mibai with a question mark after it is it necessary? Right. So, two pshatim here. One pshat is that grain has a daraisa din that you have to take chumas and maisers. But marar, vegetables, is only rabbinic. The chumas and maisers on vegetables is only rabbinic. The other pshat is that matzah is a deraisa because you have to eat matzah even if there's no Beis Hamikdash. In marar, is rabbinic bisman hazeh. There's no korban pesach. Marar is rabbinic. That could be the pshat. The Rashi brings both of these. He has a question. His question is, Rashi's question on this is, if you're trying to tell me that the issue here is marar is rabbinic because you don't have a Beis Hamikdash, so why are you discussing Ma'aser Sheni? Do you have Ma'aser Sheni when there's no Beis Hamikdash? Like, be consistent over here. If you're talking about Ma'aser Sheni, so talk about marar in a din of Ma'aser Sheni that it's only rabbinic. If you're talking about there's no Beis Hamikdash and therefore it's rabbinic, so then where are you getting Ma'aser Sheni? Unless you can answer that maybe that there was a time when there was no Beis Hamikdash, but there's still the walls were up. It was still I don't know, whatever. Kiti Bailach. Where's the Gemara's question? Where's Rami Bar Chama's question regarding marar? That's Ma'aser Sheni. Aliba de Rabbi Yossi Aglili. What's going to be the din according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili? He said that you're not allowed to use matzah. That's Ma'aser Sheni. The matzah deraisa udlei nafik. Matzah that's biblical. So that you're not yaitza with Ma'aser Sheni. But if it's marar, which is only rabbinical, it's a rabbinical obligation. Maybe it could be yaitza. Maybe called the Tikkun Rabbanan Ken deraisa tikkun. That anything the rabbis instituted, they instituted along the same lines that you would, as if it would be biblical. Rava says mistaber matzah marar. It makes sense. It says matzah marar, that the way it works is exactly how it is in the biblical. That's how it is in the rabbinic. If for matzah it doesn't work, that's how it doesn't work for marar either. Let's learn the Mishnah. Ein sharinus amorsim l'tanagolim. You're not allowed to soak bran for chickens to eat. It's going to turn into chametz. Maybe there's a chashash chametz. Aval choltin, but you're allowed to use boiling water, scalding water, to soak it. Well, this is bran from the wheat. You would soak it in water to make it food for them. But you're allowed to use boiling water. Over there, it's not going to. Regular water to soak it could turn into chametz. But if it's very, very hot water, it's going to stop it from turning into chametz. You used to put like a scrub. You used to use a scrub. She shouldn't use bran. Shouldn't soak the bran. Take it in her hand to the bathhouse. But she can scrub it on her skin dry, even though her skin could be a little bit moist. But as long as she didn't soak it in water and then put it up. You can't turn this into some sort of paste or salve. You chew kernels, and you turn it into a paste and put it on a wound. That you shouldn't do, because the saliva will also cause it to become chametz. The following things do not become chametz. This is good for the people that eat gebraks. Once it's baked, doesn't become chametz. Once it's cooked. If it's put with boiling water, so it's not going to become chametz. The Gemara has a question. Mevushal, what do you mean cooked? While you're cooking it, it's becoming chametz. You can't. We just said before, you can't put it into water. It's only boiling water that had this. Tell me again. Ad mevashal means while or instead of. Ad sometimes means instead of. Over here it means while. While you're cooking it, mechameya. Mechameya means chametz. Like kol chamira v'chamia. Chamia. It's chametz. Amar Rav Papa says, we're talking about that first you baked it, then you cooked it. You had to bake it first. You baked it first, it's not going to become chametz. Tanya Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda Omer, and then the question is, why does it have to say it? I'm not sure. I know, but once you baked it, it can't become chametz anymore. We said already, if it's baked, it can't become chametz. I guess it doesn't. Oh. I'm not sure. Tanya Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Kemach shenafal ateichei delef, flour that has a drip into it. There's like a leak in the roof that keeps dripping. Yeah, you have a sack of flour and there's dripping on it. Even the entire day, it won't become chametz. Why? It keeps getting agitated. That's only if it keeps getting agitated, but the drip keeps coming in without a stop. It never gives it a chance to rest. So that's going to affect it that it can't become chametz. It needs to be able to sit to do that. This it won't be able to do. You bake it right away. That's what it means. That as soon as you take it out, you have 18 minutes. Okay, let's leave it over.